Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is Misham Brook Green the 31st. My name's Adam, and today I'm going to give you my review, my spoiler review of... should I even say spoiler? If I'm talking about a book that's been out for years, as have all of these Dragonlance books, should I just say my review? And you should just assume that I'm going to be talking about the plot? I don't know. Anyway, this is a spoiler review of Brothers in Arms by Margaret, Weis, and Don Perrin. I will, again, be spoiling the story, so if you don't want to know it or you haven't read it yet, stop watching now. You can always come back later. I'd like to take a moment and thank the members of this YouTube channel and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the links in the description below. You can even pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link. Thanks for joining live, Est Wild. Good to see you. Now, the way these work, I'm going to give you my pre-written review, and then we'll just sort of riff a little bit. So if you have any comments that you want to throw up, maybe you know points that I don't particularly nail in my review, or things that you just want to share, feel free, and we will get to it as soon as possible, really. The Phoenix of Liberty. Great name. Thanks for joining live. Appreciate you. And it's nice that you're catching it live, too. You can do a little interaction. It's going to be fun. All right, so I'm going to dive into this right now, and then we'll just sort of riff here in just a sec. The story picks up right where the Soulforge left off. Parsaline is looking down from his tower on Antimides, Raistlin and Caramon packing to leave the Tower of High Sorcery in Weirith. He's intentionally making it cloudy and rainy as a statement to Antimides, which is kind of a dick move if you ask me. Then they all leave, and Antimides suggests that the brothers seek out Baron Ivor of Langtree for work. They begin heading that direction and cross a stream where Raceland's mount twists its leg and Raceland falls into a shallow river. The weather suddenly changes from sunny outside of Weirith Forest to rainy, and Raceland becomes very sick. He asks to be taken to Haven to Lemuel's home, who promptly takes care of him. Raceland got pneumonia and is bedridden for a bit. I like how even though Raistlin was sick his entire life, this new post-test sickness is even more cumbersome, and Raistlin doesn't even know how to deal with it initially. Antimides leaves for his own duties, and when Raistlin is healed, he and Caramon continue their travels, skirting Solace on their way, recognizing that there's really nothing left for them there. Kitiara joins up with Captain Bailiff and reflects on her pregnancy briefly and even her time with Sturm and continued love of Tanis. I am really, really happy that they tied in all of these different stories, because we have to remember, there was already a Preludes series of novels that talked about how the companions met and interacted and adventured. And then there were short stories added onto that in the Tales trilogies to sort of extrapolate on those stories that led into Dragons of Summer Flame. And so these two novels, the Raceland Chronicles as they're referred to, pay homage to a lot of those existing meetings sextet storylines and some of the Tales storylines, but they don't go, crazy in depth and retread old ground. Just a little tip of the cap, and I love that about this. So Kitiara beds Bailiff, and they head to see General Erika's in Sanction. She sees the general commanding his troops, flogs one, and has another murdered before he even meets with her. When they are alone, he comes on to her strong, and she diverts his focus without pulling away, showcasing her intellect, her cunning, and boldness. When he admits that she is right in not having sex, he sends her on what she believes is a wild goose chase. She is to deliver a message to a dragon named Imalas. Imalas. And though she doesn't believe in dragons, as soon as she sees one and feels the fear flood her senses, she calls on Takesis for the first time for help. This actually reminds me a lot of the saying in the military of, there are no atheists in a foxhole. That idea that when you're faced with imminent death, the only thing you can do is look outside of yourself. Now, I don't always agree with that idea, because I just don't believe in an afterlife or a god, but I do like it. I think it's funny. Between her praising his magnificence and her cunning and delivery, Kitiara actually convinced Imalas to travel to Sanction. They arrive back at camp, and Kitiara instructs Ericus to treat Imalas with the proper respect the dragon expects. This rubs Ericus the wrong way, but found it prudent to indulge the worm. He reveals the secret plan to capture the silver and gold dragon eggs that were hidden after the last dragon war in Hope's End, a town in the kingdom of Bloodhelm. He tasks Kitiara to join Imalas, and Kitiara staves off Ericus' advances again, promising herself to him after the mission. I love Kitiara here. She is an empowered woman who uses her cunning and wiles to accomplish goals, winning the respect of everyone she meets, and only giving in to their carnal desires if she wants to, if she can get something out of it, even if that it is only her own pleasure. She staves off the most powerful of men, and he wants her and respects her all the more for it. It's so great. Then we flash to Caramon and Raistlin, who finally enter Langtree and join up with the army. They meet and befriend a half-kender named Scrounger, who proves his resourcefulness and heart to the twins and the army. This is such a great part of the story. I had tons of flashbacks to my own basic training throughout it. I really appreciated the focus on earned respect and camaraderie that is unknown to most civilians, it seems. Soldiers do not have to agree with each other or even like each other in order to work with each other, in order to have each other's backs. They are brothers in arms, literally the title of this book. Learning to accept others' differences is something that should be a virtue as valuable to the socio-political right as it should be to the left. Now, I have been labeled on this channel with ad hominem attacks simply because I see the world, or even just Dragonlance, a little bit differently than some others. This is a childish act. It's a childish idea that everyone must believe and act the same, and it has to stop. Our strength as a species and even a nation is in our diversity of self, the diversity of our thoughts and the diversity of our actions. We have to understand that. You don't have to agree with anyone. You don't have to accept their ideas. You don't even have to like them, but at least show a little respect. All right. I got that from this basic training and walking through town series section in the novel, and I loved it. We learn that they're going to fight the rebellion in Hope's End, the request of King Wilhelm, which should prove interesting, as they will undoubtedly run into Kitiara, it seems. Raistlin saves his master and the Mad Duke himself from a black-robed, booby-trapped spellbook and wins their gratitude and respect. And Caramon is proven to be a master at soldiering, which is kind of a no-brainer for everyone. I could read about their military experiences all day. I loved the dynamics and how true to life they actually were, even in a fantasy novel, especially the training and the incessant cleaning. Then the day came to march off to Hope's End. Raistlin and Horkins spent time foraging for components on the way. They arrived at Hope's End to see the dragon army, like literally raping and pillaging, selling slaves, and since Baron Ivor had signed a contract, he kind of feels stuck. He hated meeting the commander of the dragon army, and his troops were being... Now, I think it's important to note, I'm referencing them as the dragon army because it's Ericus's army, but they are not known as the dragon army yet. So as long as you understand that this time frame, the dragon army is unknown. And that's why Imalas has to hide being a dragon. Because, you know, the Queen of Darkness doesn't want to, you know, tip her cap to the rest of the world about what she's doing. So the dragon army and his troops were being sent in to test the city's defenses. It is here that we learn that the city was only trying to negotiate taxes, but the dragon army is giving no other options: fight and die, or surrender and be slaves. The residents are forced to fight for their very existence now. Now, Caramon marches on the tower and sees the battle, and sees his first battle. The loss of his army has scarred him, and though he dealt with the madness well in battle, afterward he couldn't help but shed a number of tears. This is a moment that I thought was so poignant as well, is the expectation and anticipation of going into battle and then immediately being hit with the reality of war. And the reality of seeing your brothers in arms who you have trained with, you've become like literally as connected as family, like blood relations with, and to see them crushed by boulders and torn apart. One second they were your friend you were joking with, and the next second they were a pile of broken bones and goo. That is what PTSD is made of. And it is just so traumatizing. And they could have easily just brushed over it, saying that Caramon is a warrior and he can deal with it. But the fact that they took a moment and they just let him kind of lose himself speaks so much to the reality of conflict and stressful situations. So Kitiara and Imalas are in the city, trying to locate the dragon eggs before the city is attacked, and they learn of an ancient temple. Imalas cannot enter it as it is consecrated to paladins, so he sends Kit in. She is haunted by this spectral guardian and is shown her own death as a means to change her from evil to good, or at least allow her an opportunity to change her fate. She ignores it, and being shook to her core by the terror, and locates the eggs, drawing a map. Raistlin is sent to Imalas, suspecting him to be a red-robed mage, but all Imalas wants is the Staff of Mages, not the magical items that Raistlin brought to trade with him. Imalas was attacked and nearly defeated by Mages, and now believes Race to be Mages' descendant. Raistlin flees as fast as he can, as safely as he can, from the intimidating dragon in man form. Kitiara delivers the map to Imalas, who immediately tells her to return to Sanction, and that he is going off to destroy the dragon eggs, damn the queen and her plans. Kitiara takes it upon herself to try and stop him, and nearly gets smashed by a couple boulders in the process. She believes she has to assault it. She believes that she has fooled him into thinking that she's dead, and is still training with him, and is still trailing him. Now, the C Company, the special army company that Raistlin and Caramon are a part of, sneaks into Hope's End in order to assault it from the inside in the morning, while Commander Kolos, the commander of the Dragon Army, attacks it from the outside. Once inside, they learn the truth that the town tried to surrender, but they were told to die or become slaves. Scrounger reports the information, and the Baron himself comes to speak with the representative of the city. They sneak into the mayor's home and learn the truth, though the Majeres and Scrounger have no idea what that decision will be. Raistlin has been essential to the company entering the city, and respect for him has grown incredibly within the leadership. Now, Kitiara followed Imalas into the cavern toward the dragon eggs and met the spectral knight, who said that Imalas is now in dragon form and is going to help Kitiara defeat him. In a cavern before the eggs, the knight appeared before Imalas and stunned him with this holy light. Kitiara stabs him in the side. The ghost knight calls on divine power to collapse the cavern, and the cavern does indeed collapse. It doesn't kill the dragon, however, who changed back into human form in order to escape, and notices the damage that Kit has inflicted him now. He assumes Kit was crushed by the cave-in that wounded him. He left to the only escape left, which is through the temple into Hope's End. I am not sure how I feel about this whole polymorph becoming weaker thing. I accept the idea that if you change form into another species, then you take on the traits of that species. But it seems like the hardiness of the original creature should still be in existence. I'm not sure how I sort of reconcile that idea in like game mechanics terms, but in my head it makes sense anyway, right? So if you're a massive dragon and you polymorph into a human, you don't suddenly lose hundreds of hit points, or I would argue that you would still have your magic to cast and stuff like that. I don't know how it plays out in game terms, to be quite honest, but it always kind of bugged me. There was that short story about the dragon who's playing chess, and then the dragons who came in to hunt the dragon playing chess beat him in chess and then killed him because he was morphing from human to dragon, and it's easier to kill them in human form before they turn into dragon. That's paralleled here. It kind of bugs me, though, if I'm being honest. All right, so Raistlin, Scrounger, and Caramon are sent to inspect the temple to see if it would be a suitable field hospital. Raistlin's convinced that Solinari has directed him to the temple. They enter as the dragon is being fought and feel the fear emanating through the tunnels. It was only by sheer will that Raistlin and the others continued, And then the tremors began. They reach the knight's tomb with an open casket and are sure that there must be some sort of treasure. As Raistlin opens a gateway leading further into the temple, Imalas is standing right there, grabs his staff, and punches Raistlin right in the chest, dropping him like a sack of potatoes. The Staff of Mages is intelligent, however, being granted awareness by its creator, Magius, and knows the evil that is holding it. So it strikes out with its own magic, which takes off Imalas's hand, which I thought was gruesome and awesome. And Raistlin quickly dives, picks up the staff, and then like a Casey Jones or something, like bats at Imalas and hits him. And in conjunction with the power of the staff that he's been reading about in these ancient Salamnic tomes, it like has this massive effect of knocking Imalas back and nearly killing him, basically dealing him a critical blow while he was morphing into a dragon. And then the dragon is ultimately killed by Kitiara on behalf of the Dark Queen, and the cavern collapses again. Now, Kitiara doesn't want her brothers to know that she's there, so she waits for them to leave before she leaves. She is unable to leave the knight's tomb until she relinquishes the map that she drew to the eggs, however. So the morning dawns and war is at hand. Commander Kolos orders his men to shoot the mercenaries, the Baron's men, in the back as they enter the city and plan on killing them all so that there's no survivors in the conflict. The Baron decides to turn against the dragon army and opens the city gates for his men. Once the dragon army advances, they open the gates and the Baron's army runs out and routs the dragon army. They kill Kolos and tend to their wounded. I have such a hard time with war scenes. I don't know if it's a renewed appreciation for human life after having served or if it's PTSD, but I can't help but read this entire battle sequence through watering eyes every single time. I'm always stunned at those who call for war, and I'm often wondering to myself how those who do call for war, if they've ever actually seen any conflict or felt the after effects in their own families or see and feel for the innocents caught in the engagement. And again, I know this is a fictional novel, but human suffering is real, and it's happening right now. And for whatever reason, I can't help but recognize it. Okay, so this novel ends with Raistlin trying to suss out Kitiara's notes in her book that he found when the Baron resealed the knight's tomb. And after failing to do so, Raistlin sends a written record of his encounter with Imalas and the book to Antimides, who then forwards it to Parsalian. The master of the tower recognized the dragon's name and knew the import of the map. He knows that war is coming to Ansalon and is glad to have Raceland out there. Now look, this is the end of the duology of the Raceland Chronicles, and we've all read the Chronicles and Legends, so we know Raistlin Majere. He could be a power-hungry ass, but he was a hero of the lance. He saved Ansalon twice. This novel impressed his study of herbalism, which I always loved. It was my favorite part about the, I think it was the Dungeon Master's Guide, if I'm remembering correctly. It has this appendix in the back with a bunch of herbs and their supposed effects. And that's based on real life lore and science. And so I love that they add that element to him as a magus, and how he actually cares for other human beings when they're sick, and takes really great care of them because he can identify with how it feels. He can identify being on death's door. It reminds me of Dr. Sleep by Stephen King, which I desperately love. And it's just, you would normally expect to see it from like a monk or a cleric or something, a priest of some sort. But no, it's Raistlin Majere, and he's a great healer. And like, it adds a dimension to a character that everyone feels like they knew, that is essential to actually seeing his humanity and not just seeing him as a power-hungry monster for most of the stories. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book, not just for the content, but also for the new characters like Scrounger, the half-kender, Baron Ivor, the human mercenary, and Master Horkin, his red robe wizard. However, side note, I am admittedly confused with how Horkin is a renegade, but that's okay and approved? That doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it. Anyway, I highly recommend this book to any fan of Dragonlance and Raceland. All right, so what do you guys have to say here? What's going on here? Yeah, I read this when it first came out, and so a lot of this stuff I was reading as if it was the first time, because so much time and different stories and life, you know, I just really didn't remember it at all. Yeah, that's probably the big thing that folks only familiar with the main trilogy see bits of, but really don't know that the companions have all lived interesting lives before the War of the Lands. Yeah, and they had tons of crazy adventures. Like in Brothers Majere, like Raceland fights a lich. Like a lich. And he's like second level or something like that in D&D terms. It's kind of absurd, but you know, I guess he's got Fists in him. So that makes up for it, I guess. Scrounger was great. I 100% love me some Scrounger. Like this, he's probably a quarter Kender, the way that they describe the mother and everything, but you know, they're treating him as a half Kender. But it's this idea that, and I had this conversation briefly when I had an interview with Dragonlance Nexus, in that all Kender are painted the same way, all Tasselhoff Burfoot, right? But the truth is Kender come in a mad variety, as any species does. And so whenever people play Kenders, role-playing them, they always play them like Taz, sort of, you know, turned up to 11. But Scrounger is a perfect example of how you can have an original character that is a Kender that sometimes relies on some of the Kender traits, but just not others. And Margaret Weis does this also in the Dark Disciple trilogy with... I can't remember the Kender's name now. It's been so long. Anyway, she did it with another Kender who actually just loved hanging out with dead people. And he would just speak to spirits. Because you got to remember, in the 5th Age, the spirits were trapped until Tikhisis was defeated again. So I just love the idea of meeting another Kender that doesn't fit that sort of mold of what a Kender is supposed to be. And despite his hangups and despite how other people project their hangups of Kender onto him, he's still able to prove himself as a valuable member of the military. I think that's great. I think it's just great. She didn't want Paladine to know that she woke up her dragons, or he would have woken up the good dragons. See, but here's the deal. Bryce, thanks for joining live, by the way. Paladine knew. Like, he was walking around as Fizban. He knew that what the Dark Queen was up to. So I don't understand why he didn't say, hey, good dragons, you know what? I know that oath that you swore. How about we ignore it because she's up to some nonsense? Like, why did they have to discover the truth about the dragon eggs to figure out that she was messing up? Like, she was, and honestly, it wasn't even that, it was the fact that she was holding their eggs hostage, and they had to find out that she was corrupting their eggs to get them to come out, you know. But Silvara was out there, or Silvart, or what, you know, whatever you want to call her, and she was interacting with humans. She got like a little slap on the wrist by Fizban for it, but still, I don't know. I'm not sure I buy the whole, you know, end of our species thing because the Queen of Darkness is holding our eggs. It just doesn't hold up to water. What, you can't lay any more eggs? Is that it? Like, that's all you've got? You're all sterilized? You all went through. Now I've been fixed, so I know the pain involved in being fixed. So if all of those dragons were fixed, then I get it. You know, whatever eggs you have frozen, let's keep them on ice, and maybe we'll use them later. You don't want to have to go through the unfixing process and then have it done again. That's too much to bear. I don't know. The whole thing about the dragon staying out because of a promise they made the Queen of Darkness, it's kind of a bullshit plot point. You're welcome, Trees. You should read it. I've skimmed over a ton. Like a ton of it. I just hit basic plot points. So if you really want to get into people's minds, I would highly recommend you read it because it is really good. You lose Constitution when you morph. Okay. All right. Well, still, I don't like it. Staff of Mages has an impact buff. Yeah, it does. That's the thing. Like Raceland, someone mentioned it last time I reviewed the first Raceland novel. I'm not sure who it is, so I'm sorry for not calling you out. But they're like, Raceland just uses the Staff of Mages like a flashlight. Like, yeah, That's all he does, except for in this story. This is the only story that I can think of off the top of my head. Like, he might have cast Featherfall from the staff when he was escaping the inn from in the last home in Chronicles, but I can't remember if he said any magical words, so he cast it by his own magic or he used the staff, but that doesn't really matter because the only time we ever see anything about the staff is Shirak and Dulak. That's it. Kind of a bummer. Your absolute favorite, second only to Taz. Nice. Let's see. You bawled your eyes out when Taz died. That was rough, dude. When Tasselhoff, ugh. And we got a double dose of Tasselhoff dying also, which was even worse. Like, the first time was bad. The second time, because it was all prolonged and drawn out, and then we finally get back and we see everyone honoring him, I was just like, oh, this flippin' Kender is killing me. We have to live through it twice. It was horrible. Yeah, plot armor. Horkin was a plot hole as a renegade. Yeah. It really was strange. He was like, I drink wine with Lunatary. I was like, what? What? Like, even let's say you're figuratively drinking wine with Lunatary. Why would she be okay with you being a renegade, but no one else? Kind of fishy. That's all. And then we learn, like, I think Raceland's 3rd level right at this point, or he just passed his test, so he's like maybe 4th level or something. Because I think it was 3rd level you could take your test. But even Horkin, Master Horkin, was like, look, he's better than I am. So maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe he's not a renegade because he never advanced high enough in order to even take his test. He just used other tricks, you know? This is your favorite time period just prior to the War of the Lands. It was such an interesting period. I agree, Bryce. This is a great time. And so for anyone who wants to play, like, DM their own Dragonlance story, this is probably the best time period to do it in. It's going to be tough because magic is restricted, but that also means you have to be creative as players and as a DM. You need to make sure that the players can live through, you know, with massive challenge, what you're trying to put them through. It's a great period, though. So many people are hated all across Ansalon. You have to be super careful about who you talk to, how you talk to them, what race you are, and who you approach. It's like walking on eggshells. It's crazy. You prefer Dalamar? Wow. That surprises me. I don't think I've ever heard someone say they prefer Dalamar over Raceland. Good for you. I don't know if Fizban was that early. I don't know. I'm just sort of riffing in what's in my head. I'll have to look at the timeline and stuff. Paladin shows himself to the King Priest of Istar. That's another trilogy I have to read again, is the Istar King. Is it called King Priest Trilogy, I think? I got to read that one again. Maybe dragons can only procreate once in a lifetime. That sucks to be a dragon. Thanks for joining live, Hero. I appreciate you, man. That would be horrible. The one great thing about being a sentient animal is that you get to have orgasms. Like, the horrid stuff that life throws at you. The fact that as soon as you're born, you are traveling to death. And all the crazy stuff that we as human beings put upon us to add to that difficulty and that treachery. Our own behavior. The one good thing above all others is the orgasm. And dragons only get one? Ugh. Ugh. Of course, you can orgasm and not procreate. And they're lizards, so I don't even know if laying an egg counts. You know? Does that feel good? I don't want to know. This is a weird train that I'm going down. Solid Crumby, how you doing? Thanks for joining live. It's a great story. It really is a great story. Let's see what else. Maybe Taz will die again in the new trilogy. The worst part is we know he's going to die. So if he is the most charming and adorable version of himself, we all know what's happening. We all know what's in the mail. It's going to suck. Oh, you just finished Legends, Shoot. Thanks for joining live. That's great. Legends is awesome. It's a lot of fun. Taz is great in Legends. You're under the impression that it was Lunatary's lover. What? Who? Horkin? Yeah, Phoenix, there's a new trilogy. The first book is being released August 2nd. It's called the Destinies Trilogy by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, and it is set in the time after Legends. So it's after the War of the Lance and the Blue Ladies War, but before the Summer of Chaos. And it's focusing on a different character, Destina, but it's called Dragons of Despair because of the publishers. It has nothing to do with the story. It was originally called, hold your pants, Tasselhoff's wife. So something's happening. All right, you're reading The Dragons of Krynn. That's a good one. I have to revisit that. I haven't read that since high school. Evil dragons are pretty antisocial, as you recall. They don't even like their own kind, especially the breeding pair, you know, is Doom Brigade. But these were good dragon eggs that did it. And I like to think, I'm not going to talk about it anymore, about dragons having sex. I don't care. Doing great, just done work. Let's see. They're going to use a time device for the new trilogy. Yep. You thought Horkin was kicking it with the goddess, like sexually? I did not see that. I didn't read that at all. With as much love as Lunatary is showing Raistlin, I feel like if she was betting anyone, it'd be Raistlin. Like she, even when he turned black robes, she had his back. Like if you read the Lost Chronicles, she adores Raistlin. Like just absolutely adores him. And it probably because he is the epitome of swaying different ways. He may wear the black robes, but he does good things, objectively good things. So he is the pure essence of neutrality. Self-interested, does bad, does good, totally subjective. I don't know. Maybe Horkin was a hunk in his younger days. However, just his name. Like, are his parents hate him? Horkin. Let's name our son Horkin. Because every woman wants to say, yeah, I'm in love with Horkin. Come on now. He probably got so much crap as a kid. Horkin. Raistlin wasn't into that, though. Yeah, that's true. Raistlin is very asexual. And hats off to him. He had a passion, and magic was it. That's all he cared about. I'm not reading that, Bryce, but I loved it. All right, that's all I got. Thank you guys so much. You made this a lot of fun. I love this format of us just sort of riffing a little bit about Dragonlance. I certainly love revisiting these old books that I read back when I was much younger, and just sort of seeing them through new eyes. You know, like I'm all grown, I'm all grows up now, and I've had a ton of different life experiences, and I read these very differently than I ever did when I was a kid. They ring differently, and they have different truths in them that I witness from firsthand experience, versus, you know, I haven't fought dragons or anything like that, but, you know, just dealing, you know, in the military and just life in general. So it's really cool. Oh, there you go. Shu, you're the same as me. I got you on a year, but that's it. Anyway, thank you guys so much. That's it for my review of Brothers in Arms by Margaret Weis and Dawn Perrin. Do you think that this helps explain Raistlin Majere as a character? And are there any inconsistencies from the Meetings or the Preludes novels that you found when you read this? You can always email me at info@dlsaga.com or comment below. I'd like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. I know you hear it all the time. I hate saying it. Everyone hates hearing it. But it does all go to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. And again, this channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the DragonLance Saga. And I thank you for joining me. Once again, this has been Adam. That's me. DragonLance Saga. And until next time, Slanjavar.